We're going to start recording again so that y'all have this for posterity. Moving y'all closer and moving you here. We're moving into plant processes, and we have about an hour to do this, 50 minutes. And so in this 50 minutes, again, you know, we're going to take the whirlwind tour of plant processes. So some of the things that you're going to learn about in the next 50 minutes or so are going to be translocation, which is dealings with your vascular system. We've talked about that. Photosynthesis, respiration, transpiration, evaporation, photoperiodism, thermal floral induction, and dormancy. Now, doesn't that sound like a lot of fun to do? Oh, and tropisms. I forgot about tropisms. So with that, we're going to learn about all that in the next 50 minutes or so. So hold, you know, grab your hats, hold on to them. Here we go. And to be honest, it sounds like a lot, but this is going to have a lot of review of stuff we've already talked about when we were talking about plant parts. So let's start about translocation. What system, what types of cells are in translocation? It's the vascular system. What are the two big types of cells in the vascular system? Someone tell me.
Is that the phloem and the xylem?
The phloem and the xylem. That's the highway system. And those two main parts are your xylem and your phloem. The xylem moves stuff which direction?
Upward.
It moves it upward. What's being moved upward?
Water. Nutrient.
Water and nutrients. The other one is so that's xylem and phloem. Phloem is moving what direction?
Down.
Downward.
Down. And what is being moved down?
Carbohydrates.
Carbohydrates. So again, water and nutrients up, sugar and carbohydrates down, and we're done. And it happens in the vascular system. So when you look at this monocot, remember we talked about vascular bundles. It's not in a ring arrangement. So each of these vascular bundles has xylem and phloem in it, and each bundle will move stuff up and down. So that's where when a palm tree is hit on a side, it's not going to be affected the same way as a dicot because it has these bundles throughout the rest of the plant that will help to supply water and nutrients. Where a dicot has that distinctive ring arrangement with the xylem always to the inside, the phloem always to the outside, and the cambium is that meristem. Remember, meristems make new cells, makes new xylem to the inside of the plant and new phloem to the outside. So that's your vascular system, and that's what gives you translocation. And we're done with that. You see, like 4 minutes, and we hit one whole plant process. Questions on translocation? Okay. We're moving on to photosynthesis. Photosynthesis happens primarily in what part of the plant? Primarily.
The leaves.
In the leaves, that's those plant factories. And again, photosynthesis. Photo means?
Light.
And synthesis?
Making it.
Making something. So you have photo, light, synthesis means to create. So again, it's making carbohydrates in the presence of light. So only, and this is a really important fact here, only plants can make their own food in the presence of light and chlorophyll. Only plants can do that. Animals cannot. And that's why plants are so important. Plants are the beginning of the food chain. Because at some point, an animal ate an animal that 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 ate a plant. Somewhere down the line, something ate a plant. And it may just be a single cell algae that it ate. But at some point, it ate a plant. And that's where it gets the stored carbohydrates. So photosynthesis, it only happens by plants in the presence of chlorophyll. So that's why all living creatures are tied to plants. Leaves, like I said, are those plant factories, where it is created, where it's made. So leaves are the plant factories. And in that, your the end product, when someone says, what happens, why do plants do photosynthesis? What does it create? The thing that photosynthesis is all about is creating carbohydrates or sugars. That is the end product of photosynthesis. It's always the carbohydrate. Everything else is a byproduct. So there are some byproducts of photosynthesis too. The other thing I want to make sure you understand is that the carbohydrate is the true plant food. And when you go to the garden center, whether you're going to your favorite local garden center, privately owned, or you go to the box garden center, and you buy that thing that's called plant food, that's not true food. That's a fertilizer or a nutrient. The true food is a carbohydrate, because plants need carbohydrates and animals need carbohydrates. So the quote plant food really should be termed fertilizers or nutrients. So as master gardeners, that's one of those things I want you to swear to, that I will not use the term plant food for fertilizers and nutrients. I'm going to use the proper name of fertilizers or nutrients to help educate the world around you. So again, photosynthesis makes food. Happening in this is a different picture of a leaf cross section. But again, you have the palisade parenchyma here. That's where the majority of this is happening. You have the vascular system moving through it with the xylem and the phloem in it. Xylem's moving the water and nutrients in to the leaf. And then you have air moving in and out through the stoma. So that carbon dioxide is moving in, oxygen's moving out through there, and water vapor also. So this is what's happening. It happens in these little green chlorophyll. Chloroplast is really the type of organelle that holds the chlorophyll inside the plant cell.
Dr. Womack,
Yes.
could you please share your screen?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was being shared. No one has said anything until now. Hold on. I thought we were sharing already. Let's see. I am so sorry. No one said anything. Share screen. Where's I gotta pull this out. Share screen. Okay, now can y'all see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, I am sorry. I wish someone would have said something earlier. Let's back up just a little bit just to make sure. Y'all saw the stuff on translocation, right? But that is all pretty simple. That's everything we're going to study today in the last hour. Translocation, we talked about that. And I was showing you the monocot, which obviously y'all didn't see. The monocot with the vascular bundles. Each of these has xylem and phloem in it, and they're scattered throughout, versus a dicot that has the ring. So you have a ring of xylem to the inside, a ring of phloem to the outside. And then we were talking about photosynthesis, and the rest of it this should all make sense. That's what we talked about. And now we're moving into the picture of the leaf. So is everyone caught up?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I am sorry that you didn't see the screen. Someone should have said something earlier. Here we go. All learning in this together. So here, this little square, this square here you're seeing is like they cut it out of the center of this leaf over here. That's a cross section. So this is the top of the leaf. This is the bottom. The top has the cuticle. We just saw that a little bit ago. There's an epidermis layer, or a layer of skin cells. There's an upper epidermis and a lower epidermis. The stoma, there are more of them on the bottom of the leaf than on the top. Doesn't mean you can't have a few on the top, but mostly they're on the bottom. And then surrounding them are two cells called guard cells. And again, that's what opens and shuts the opening that regulates carbon dioxide, oxygen, and water inside the leaf. So you have water and nutrients coming in the xylem, and they go up and they're moved into the palisade mesophyll with the chloroplast, the green structures. That's where photosynthesis happens, at the chlorophyll, in the chloroplast. And so it's going to combine the water and the carbon dioxide together and bind them together to create a sugar molecule. And so we're going to see what that looks like. This is where it happens. And so then we're going to do it in a chemistry lesson real quick. So the chemistry of photosynthesis. There was someone, I'm sorry, somewhere someone was trying to get in. Did the last person get in? I guess they did. The chemistry of photosynthesis is carbon dioxide, or CO2, plus water, H2O, gives you a simple sugar molecule. This is a simple sugar, C6H12O6, and then there's extra oxygen. So this is the product, the carbohydrate, C6H12O6. That's the product of photosynthesis. This is the byproduct over here, okay? So carbon dioxide plus water gives you sugar and oxygen. If you remember something about chemistry, and some of y'all probably loved chemistry and some of y'all probably absolutely hated it, the one thing I remember that really stands out is Mrs. Snyder, Betty Snyder used to tell us in high school, you got to have a balanced equation, remember? So that means you have to have the same number of carbons on one side as you do on the other. So to make this balance, you have to have, because you need 6 carbon molecules over here to make a sugar, that means you have to have 6 carbons. The only way to do that is to have 6 carbon dioxide molecules, because 6 times 1 is going to give you 6 carbons. And here you have 6 times, there's 2 oxygens in each one, so 6 times 2 is going to give you 12 oxygens there. And then here you have to have 12 hydrogens for the middle of this. The only hydrogen that's available is from water, so you have 2 in each water molecule, so that means you need 6 water molecules. 6 times 2 gives you the 12 hydrogens in the middle, and 6 times 1 gives you 6 more oxygens. So when you add these all together, you have the 6 carbons here, you have the 12 hydrogens here, and the 6 oxygens. That gives you 1 sugar molecule, C6H12O6. The 6 oxygens that break apart during the process from the carbon dioxide, that gives you 6 oxygen molecules over here. Oxygen's always in the form of O2. So you have 6 oxygen molecules and 1 sugar molecule. You know what? I am so glad that photosynthesis has a byproduct, because I kind of want that oxygen to breathe. So photosynthesis will make oxygen, but that's not its purpose. The purpose of photosynthesis is to make a sugar molecule. The byproduct is going to be oxygen. And it uses carbon dioxide and water to do that. Okay? That is the chemistry of photosynthesis. So this has to happen in the presence of light. That's the energy source. It's the light that gives you the energy to make chemical bonds that hold these together. This is all together because there are chemical bonds. You remember the looks like the Tinker Toy things that you used in chemistry class? Each of those molecules is held together. That stick is energy. That's a chemical bond that holds it together. And later on, when you break that bond apart, that's what releases the energy, and that's where the energy from carbohydrates come from. So again, you need carbon dioxide, water in the presence of light, and chlorophyll. That's what the green portion of the leaf where this is happening. That's what you need for photosynthesis. 6 carbon dioxides plus 6 water give you 1 sugar molecule plus 6 oxygens, okay? Thumbs up. Anyone scared? Anyone hate chemistry at this point? It's a very simple formula. See where everything comes from? Okay, I see some thumbs up. That's good. I'm going to move on. So photosynthesis, again, happens in the leaves. The water comes up from the roots. The carbon dioxide comes in through the leaves, underneath, through the stoma. The sunlight is absorbed by the chlorophyll in the leaf, and it makes a sugar, which then moves down through the plant and supplies the carbohydrates for other parts of that plant, and it releases oxygen back in the air. So that's kind of the picture of how and where it happens, okay? So water and carbon dioxide in the presence of sunlight in where the chlorophyll is gives you the sugar and the oxygen. So let's move to respiration. If you got photosynthesis pretty well, respiration will be very easy, because respiration is the exact opposite of photosynthesis. It's just, and one of the things that we were taught, I remember being taught this in elementary school. Animals breathe in oxygen, right? Yes, animals breathe in, that's what we breathe. What do plants breathe to live?
Carbon dioxide.
Carbon dioxide, I hear that. Does everyone agree with that?
Yes.
What do they breathe in to live? This is the process called respiration. They need oxygen also. If you said that they are breathing in carbon dioxide to live, you're wrong. Every living creature breathes in oxygen, uses oxygen for respiration. Now, they also breathe in carbon dioxide for photosynthesis, but that's not what makes them live. That helps them make food. Plants are breathing in oxygen just like animals do. And that is something we have to unlearn from our childhood. Now, do they breathe in carbon dioxide? Yes, but what's that for again? Why are they breathing in carbon dioxide?
Make sure.
Food.
For what's that process we just talked about?
Photosynthesis.
Photosynthesis, not for respiration, okay? So all living creatures, plants, animals, it doesn't matter. They respire, they require oxygen. And respiration is the breakdown of that carbohydrate molecule. It's breaking down the C6H12O6, and as it breaks it down, those chemical bonds are released. And that's where the energy comes from, is breaking the chemical bonds in a sugar molecule. Breaking the bonds gives you the energy for respiration. Plants will respire 24 hours a day, just like animals respire or breathe 24 hours a day. And every cell in an animal that's alive or in a plant, every cell requires oxygen for respiration. All cells, plants and animal cells, all require oxygen for respiration. How they get it is a little different in animals versus in plants. Because in an animal, we have a respiratory system and it moves through the blood system. In plants, it doesn't happen that way. It actually has to move through the plant. That's why you have the pores in the leaves for respiration there. Some of it can move in and out of lenticels in the stem or in the roots. Lots of times you have air that can move, oxygen is required in roots also, where they can either have specialized structures that allow air to move up and down tubes in the roots, but most of the time they're absorbing oxygen from the soil. And that's why we talk about when a plant is water soaked, it's been sitting in water and the roots die on a plant because it's waterlogged or has, quote, wet feet. It's because there's no oxygen available to those roots. And that's why we say aeration is important, because those roots will also absorb air. So that's respiration happens in all parts of the plant as well as in all cells of an animal. And again, those plants don't have a respiratory system. They can have specialized structures that allow some air movement through the plant, but they don't have a true respiratory system like an animal does. So respiration, it is taking the sugar molecule. Does this look familiar? C6H12O6. And when you breathe, you need to breathe what? What's that? Oxygen. So when you have the sugar available, you use oxygen in respiration, and it's going to produce carbon dioxide and water. Does that look familiar?
Yes.
It's the exact opposite of what we showed in photosynthesis. And in that process, again, it has to be balanced. I told you about balanced equations. So in order, if you have the 6 carbon dioxides and 12 hydrogens, it needs oxygen in order to create the water molecules. The other way you know respiration is happening, remember, we know that we breathe out carbon dioxide, we know that, but the other thing that's in respiration is water. What was the way they used to find out if someone was still alive? What did they used to do to people?
They would hold mirrors up to their noses to see if they created a fog or breath.
Exactly, because that's the water vapor in their breath that was collecting. So not only did they have carbon dioxide, but they would have had water that was coming from their lungs. So it's the exact opposite. C6H12O6 plus 6 oxygens gives you 6 carbon dioxide molecules and 6 waters. The exact opposite. Again, as the carbohydrate breaks down, all of the bonds that hold this together release energy. And that oxygen is required for respiration, carbon dioxide and water, those are your byproducts. That's what happens in the breakdown. Respiration is releasing the energy. That's really what it's trying to do. So looking at them side by side, again, photosynthesis versus respiration. Photosynthesis produces food. Respiration uses food for energy. So one produces sugar, one uses the sugar. The respiration uses it. Photosynthesis stores the energy. Respiration is going to release the energy. It stores the energy by making chemical bonds. It releases energy by breaking apart the chemical bonds. Again, photosynthesis happens in cells with chloroplasts. What color are the chloroplasts?
I think you said they're green, but they might.
They're green. That's the part that makes a plant green. And respiration occurs in all cells, plants and animal cells, but only in the green cells for photosynthesis. Where photosynthesis releases oxygen, respiration is going to use oxygen. Where photosynthesis uses water, respiration is going to produce water or release water. So that's photosynthesis versus respiration. They're just the exact opposite. Two sides of the same coin. Does that make sense? You really only have to learn one simple chemical equation and you learn 2 whole processes. So we're going to move on then. We talked about photosynthesis and respiration. Now we're going to talk about transpiration and evaporation. And with that, I want you to see, and I'm going to have to move this slightly so I can see what's going on. You're probably just going to see part of my face now. But transpiration is, we have transpiration and evaporation and precipitation, three Asian words, and I just want you to understand the difference on precipitation is how moisture is produced or through a weather type event. That's precipitation, and there's all kinds of precipitation. You have rain is the most obvious one, but you can also have it through hail, you can have it through snow, you can have it through sleet. snow, all those ice, those are all precipitation forms where water from the air is moved into to the ground at some form through, that's precipitation. Evaporation is where that water changes from a liquid form to a gas form. And in that process, it's evaporation. Now, if it occurs in the soil, if it occurs on the surface of something, we simply call it evaporation. But if you have that water that evaporates inside a plant leaf, we call that transpiration. So the transpiration happens inside the leaf, and that's actually a cooling process of that plant. The transpiration process, whenever water evaporates, it requires heat. So it takes heat from the air in that evaporation process. So for instance, when you get out of the pool, because it's summer, or out of the shower, and you have water on you, as that water evaporates, what happens to your skin?
It's like plant sweat.
Well, but on your skin, when the water is on your skin and it evaporates, what does it feel like?
It's
Cool
cooling.
off.
Say that again.
You cool off.
You cool off because it requires the heat in your body to evaporate the water. So there is a cooling effect that's called evaporative cooling. And that's the same thing that you see in it if you've ever seen what they call a swamp cooler, where they have water that runs down and a fan blows through it, and you feel that coolness on the other side of the fan. Or when you have a storm coming in and there's rain and the rain hasn't got to you yet, but you can feel the wind blowing coming from the direction the rain's coming from. It has evaporated some of that water in the rain, and it gives you a cool air blowing on you. It's the same thing as when that water evaporates from your skin after you get out of the pool or the shower. It's evaporative cooling. The same thing can happen inside a plant, and that keeps the leaves cooler, which is important because photosynthesis needs a temperature somewhere in the 70s or low 80s to be efficient. Once it gets higher than that, the photosynthesis efficiency goes way, 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 way down. So that plant wants to stay cool to be efficient for evaporation or for photosynthesis. So transpiration pulls water up from the roots, up through the vascular system. What's it moving through? The what?
Xylem.
It's moving up through the xylem. Water moves up through the xylem into the leaves. It evaporates through that leaf, and it moves out through the little stoma, remember, the little pores? And when it moves, it evaporates inside that leaf. It cools the inside of the leaf for photosynthesis. It's a built-in cooling system for that plant. Okay? That's what transpiration is. So you have evaporation if it occurs on the ground or in the soil. You have transpiration if it occurs in the leaves. Okay? That's really the difference between evaporation and transpiration. And okay, why is it not forwarding? There we go. So transpiration again, loss of water through the leaf, gives you the cooling effect. Something that's interesting is in the summertime, you know, we water so much in the summers because it's so hot and the plants are trying to stay cool. Up to 80% of the water, particularly in hot areas like down here, of water that's absorbed by the roots gets lost by transpiration. That means only 20% of it is being used for plant processes like photosynthesis or for making new cells. 80% of it is being lost in the air through transpiration for cooling of that plant. Does that tell you how important that water is to that plant? And that's also why in the middle of the day when it's so hot, you'll see droopy leaves that may perk back up because it's losing water faster than it can pull it up through the vascular system. And that's what we sometimes call the transpiration stream. pulling water up through the roots, moving up through the stem, and losing it through the leaves to keep the plant cool. And that helps to keep the photosynthesis efficient, but it also keeps those leaves perky in the summer. So again, things that can affect transpiration: higher the temperature, the more transpiration. The higher the light level, intense sun, the higher the transpiration. Sun is energy, it's hotter. The higher the wind, the more it gets pulled away. The more water gets pulled away in the wind, the more transpiration. It means it's pulling water up to replace it. But humidity is a little bit different. The higher the humidity, usually the lower the transpiration, because that means there's a lot of water in the air. When the air is really dry, a plant will use more water. So that's why hot in South Texas uses less water than hot in Arizona. It can be 80 degrees, same amount of wind, but that 80 degrees in Arizona is what they call a dry heat, because it sucks the water out of that plant faster because there's less humidity. The higher humidity would give you less transpiration in South Texas versus Arizona. So again, higher temperature, higher transpiration; higher light, higher transpiration; higher wind, higher transpiration, which also means during cold spells in the winter, when you get a cold front in and you have a lot of wind, that's why we say water your plants, because it helps to replace that water. When the wind blows and sucks water out of the leaves, it has water to replace it, and it protects those leaves from drying out. And then high humidity would reduce it. You want to see transpiration? Take a bag, put it over a plant branch, and you'll see that moisture collecting inside the leaves. That is water that's being drawn up from the root system and released through the leaves. So that's a kind of a fun demonstration of how you can see that. Transpiration. It happens because of the guard cells. Remember, that's the bottom side of the leaf. It lets water that's evaporated through the leaf, and it lets it escape out of the bottom of the leaf. And evaporation is the same thing, but it happens really outside the plant. Could be on the leaf surface, on the soil surface, and it's just changing from a liquid to a gas. Okay? That gets us through evaporation and transpiration. So we've done the vascular system, and again, that's also important for transpiration. You have your vascular transportation system. We've done photosynthesis, respiration, we've done evaporation, transpiration, and now let's move into photoperiodism. So we have about 20 minutes left on the class. Photoperiodism means that you have photo, meaning light, and a certain period, a certain amount of light, a certain time period of light that triggers something in the plant. Usually the thing we're talking about triggering with photoperiodism is what? Take a guess.
Reproduction.
Exactly, reproduction. Reproduction usually means creating, what is the main organ that starts the reproductive cycle? Someone besides Tara, someone else can get this one.
Flower.
Flowers. Start creating a flower due to a certain amount of light. And the ones that we typically, there are some plants that we consider short day plants and some we consider long day plants. Those short day plants here, we have short days in the winter, so we see them flowering in the winter. And photoperiodism means that you're going to have, when the days get to a certain length, it's going to force the plant into flowering. That's what photoperiodism is. So it's a plant response, usually flower induction, to day length. We call it day length because that's what we're used to. And of course, we're, as horticulturists and people, we think it all revolves around us. So because we recognize daytime, because that's when we're typically the most active, we talk about the day length. Plants really are looking at it in terms of uninterrupted night length. And that's really important. Uninterrupted night length is what's important for photoperiodism. So a short day plant, what we call a short day plant, is really better called a long night plant. A long night plant. What's something that would be a short day plant? Something that blooms in the winter around here.
Oh no.
Poinsettia.
Poinsettia is the #1 thing that people think about, but there are a few others.
Christmas cactus.
Christmas cactus is a good one, Tim. There's another Christmas plant,
Oh,
and it's kind of dry,
it's kind of dry.
kind of succulent. Christmas. Christmas. I'm giving you half of the name of it.
Tree?
No, they don't bloom usually. We cut those off and kill them. So, how about a Christmas cactus?
Somebody
I already
just,
said that.
I couldn't hear that.
oh,
Christmas cactus. I'm sorry, Carlos. I think that was Carlos.
No,
Christmas cactus is one.
I think Tim said it.
Okay. Christmas cactus is one. Another one is kalanchos or kalanchoes. They bloom with short days. How about in the fall, we sometimes plant garden mums or chrysanthemums. They grow when the days are getting shorter and the nights are getting longer, or they flower at that point. So
What
those
about what about the short day versus long day onions?
short day versus long day? Yes. When they actually go into flower, those short day onions, and again, remember, onions take 2 growing seasons because they really are growing vegetatively part of the time, and then they actually throw out the flower stalk. And some of those plants you're going to see as we talk about the long day, short night plants. That's when we call a lot of those plants that bolt in the spring gardens down here. That's your spinaches and lettuces and stuff like that. They're long day or short night plants. So poinsettias, chrysanthemums, kalanchos are good short day plant examples. Your long day plants or take short nights. Things like lettuce, cilantro is another one of those. Anyone try to grow cilantro in the summer? It just seems like you can't get it to do it. But as soon as the days start to get shorter, then you start seeing that August, September, October, you start being able to grow it really well again. Because it will go into flower mode when the days get long. And, I'm sorry. And then there are some plants that are day neutral. That means they don't care what the day length is. They're going to flower pretty much any time during the year. So thank goodness a lot of plants fall in that category. Crepe myrtle is another one of those plants that's a long day, short night plant. So that's why crepe myrtles bloom here in the summer, but not in the winter. So again, there are ways you can manipulate the light to help them along. For us, the season influences the day length because, as you know, as we move into winter time in the northern hemisphere, our days get shorter and our nights get longer. So where we are, that's going to be important. And when you hit the equinox, that's when you're split. Half your days are the same length, and that's your vernal or your spring equinox and your fall or autumnal equinox. That's when they're 12 days and 12 hours, 12 hours. But then as you move further into winter, your days get shorter and your nights get longer. For poinsettias, you need about 14 hours. So the way to look at this is back to, remember I talked to you about uninterrupted night was important. So with poinsettias, you want that long uninterrupted night period. If you have a long dark period for a short day plant, then you're going to get flowering. If you have short dark period but long days, it's going to be vegetative. It's going to make roots. It's going to make flowers. Roots and stems and leaves. So a poinsettia, you want lots of stems and leaves created up front, but then there's a point you want it to go into flowering so it's ready for Christmas. And but the thing is, if this dark period gets interrupted, even just for a short period, it will keep that plant vegetative for a short day plant, long night, okay? Because the night was interrupted. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay, I'm going to show you, and here's some examples of long day versus short day plants here. Irises are going to be a long day plant. They bloom in the summer down here, but in the winter, they're not going to have flowers, as they move into the late fall. But you can break that night up with short periods and get flowers. Over here you have, this is goldenrod, or you could do it as poinsettias. But back to in the summertime when you have a long day, early summer, you have no flowers. You have just stems and leaves being produced. But when you get into the fall, you start seeing flowers on either one of those, or kalanchos would do the same thing. But if you interrupt the night, all you're going to get are leaves and stems being produced again, because it hasn't switched into that reproductive mode. The hormones are different for reproduction inside the plant than they are for reproduction than they are for vegetative growth. So let me show you how that works real quick. I'm going to stop sharing the screen for one more time. Stop share and see if y'all can see the example I'm about to do here. Okay, see if I'm, okay, can y'all see the cup that I have? If you're here we go. If you're trying to grow have a poinsettia flower, there's a chemical called phytochrome inside that plant, and it switches from one form, which is flowering form, to the non-flowering form based on that day length. And so what you're trying to do is accumulate enough of the dark period to accumulate the phytochrome inside that. So it's like you're trying to fill this cup, and once you hit the magic amount, which for poinsettias is about 14 hours and 20 minutes, when you hit that point and it's full, then that plant's going to go into flower mode, okay? And that's what happens in the fall, is that you have over 14 hours of night, usually starting in October. And when that happens, the plant will go into flower mode. However, if you've had a poinsettia that you love the color of and you wanted to keep it and say, well, I'm going to reflower it next year, sometimes they tell you to put it in a closet or something. You go, well, why do you do that? It's because you want to make sure that night doesn't get interrupted. Because guess what? Here it is, and it's November. You have a 15-hour day, or 15-hour night. But as it's going along, you're coming along, and about 1 in the morning, something makes a noise outside, and your dog starts barking. So what are you going to do? You're going to turn on the light on your back porch, and guess what? You just started over. You poured out everything. Even for the rest of that night, it won't build up. So every time that light comes on, it's like it nullifies all the collection of the phytochrome in that plant. So by the end of the morning, by the time morning comes around, there's not enough of it built up to cause flowering. So the plant stays vegetated. But again, you're coming along and you're doing okay. Now, if you get all the way to 4 o'clock in the morning and your neighbor goes to work and his headlights shine on your poinsettia, guess what? You were almost at the top and you only get that little bit for the end of the night. So you've got to have uninterrupted night for the whatever that critical photo period is. And when you do that, the plant will go into flower mode, whether it's a poinsettia, whether it's a mum, or the goldenrod wildflowers. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So I should
Okay.
not be keeping my vegetables on my porch with my porch light on.
You should not. Well, it depends on what you're growing. It's not going to hurt it actually would be good for your, I wouldn't do it for my spinach and my lettuce and stuff like that. But if you want that longer night, you could actually protect it somehow. And what they'll even do on poinsettias is in greenhouses, they now have greenhouses that have big shade inside that structures that pull shade over and make it dark at night to make sure there's no interruption from something, because that's their livelihood. They have one chance to do that. So I'm going to go back to sharing the screen again because we got still some stuff to cover. Let's keep moving. Practical botany. Come on. Did it share? Come on. Share. Practical botany. Share. Okay. Now y'all can see the screen again?
Yes.
Okay. Here we go. Moving on real quick to the last couple of things. Floral induction is another plant process that you may hear about, and that's basically thermal induction means that you have to have a cooling period in order for some plants to initiate flower buds. And that's primarily what you find in bulbs. So bulbs that are from more northern climates that are temperate bulbs like tulips and daffodils and jonquils and these things that you find up north, they need a cool period, and Easter lilies and Asiatic lilies, they need a cool period in order to make flowers because they don't want to make flowers before winter is over. Otherwise, they could grow and if it warms up in the middle of winter. So they're waiting for a certain amount of cold temperature to induce flowers. So that's why bulbs that you may get down here and you plant them in the ground and you don't dig them up, they never flower again because they never get cold enough to make new flowers. And eventually they use up all the carbohydrates in their bulb, or they succumb to some kind of rot down here. But Easter lilies and things like that, they actually take the bulbs, they dig them up, and they put them into giant cooling buildings to ensure that they all have a certain amount of cold temperature. Because if they're going to sell you tulip bulbs or someplace they want to make sure that those are going to bloom, or else you will never buy from them again. So again, thermal induction is just a cooling process that initiates flower buds. And again, bulbs are the main thing that we're looking at. Dormancy, real quick, we talked some about this. It can be induced by an environmental condition, meaning a temperature, or it could be a physiological, which could be some kind of chemical inside that plant. Like seeds will have a physiological, sometimes a hormone component within them that keeps them dormant longer. And then other seeds are looking for an environmental condition, like they need a certain amount of light in order to break their dormancy. Or we talked about blueberries and azaleas the last time, and even peaches. They have a certain amount, they need a certain amount of cold temperature in order to break their dormancy because they are temperate plants. We move them out of where they originally came from into warmer areas, and they're not adapted to that. So again, dormancy can be broken either by an environmental condition or some kind of physiological change. And again, usually it's the flower bud that we're looking at, trying to break the dormancy. So flowers will initiate and open. And it is that survival mechanism so they don't bloom in the winter and then have the flowers or the fruit freeze in a late season frost. So that's what we talked last time about, those chill unit accumulations, that you have a certain level of chill units that accumulate between 32 and 50 degrees. Once it goes below 32, they're not collecting chill units, they're just sitting there. The good thing is they don't lose them either. But as you go from 32 up to closer to 40, you aren't getting a one-to-one collection of chill units. You start losing that efficiency. And as you get up to 50, you're probably 20% efficiency or 25% efficiency. You get above 50, 55 degrees and you start losing those chill units. So that, again, this is just a mechanism where the chemicals inside the plant are trying to determine if winter is over for temperate plants. This is all about temperate area plants. And we're really not temperate where we are located. Okay, so that's what dormancy is all about. Again, partial units at 40 to 50 degrees, and then you can lose the chill units that you get above 55 degrees. And again, no chill units are accumulated below 32. We covered all this the last time when we showed you the chill unit map. Does that make sense? Okay, the last thing I want to talk quickly about are tropisms. And tropisms are perceived movement. It's perceived movement. Really, it's a plant growth that's response to some kind of hormone change. Usually, the most common ones are light or gravity. So, like if you lay a plant over on the ground and then it starts to grow up, it could either be due to, usually that's due to gravity, because a plant is trying to make sure that the leaves are up high for photosynthesis. And if it's laying on the ground, it's not being efficient. So what it does is the side that's facing the ground, those cells have an accumulation of auxin, which is a hormone that the plant makes. It's also used for rooting. But what it'll do is it makes increases the auxin on that dark side or on the ground side of the stem, and it causes those cells just on that side to elongate. So they are longer cells there, and then the other cells stay the same size, and that causes that plant movement to go from flat laying down, and looks like over time it starts to grow upward because it is a response to gravity. Trying to get that plant up, growing upward for photosynthesis. So it is a stretching of existing cells due to an increase of hormone of auxin. The same thing happens when you have a plant that's growing in a window and you see that plant that starts leaning towards the light. What is happening is the dark side, there's auxins that are being built up on that side to stretch that plant and point it towards the light so that it's more efficient with photosynthesis. And that's why when we talk about people that have plants, potted plants inside in a window, we tell them to rotate those plants so the plant will grow straight. Otherwise, it's going to be a very lopsided plant. And that's phototropism because it's a light, it's response to light. If it was to gravity, it's called gravitropism. So again, phototropism stretches towards the light. Gravitropism is that growing up in direction due to the gravity. And again, it's survival mechanisms, and it's caused by the hormone auxin accumulated either on the bottom side on the gravitropism or on the dark side on phototropism. So that's what causes the stretching of that stem. Remember when plants stretch, what did we call it when they stretch in between the leaves? I gave y'all a real fancy term for that. Between the leaves, they're stretching.
Is it the internodal something?
Elongation, you got it. Internodal elongation. That's exactly what's happening with tropisms. And that's all. And it is 7:32, and I didn't start till 7:30, so or till 5:30. So we made it in 2 hours. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen. Are there questions on any of the stuff we covered today?
Could you go one more time for me, please, over the phototropism and gravitropism in terms of how the auxin, what the auxin does?
Okay, I'm going to share the screen one more time then. Give me 1 second to get here. Share the...
Unfortunately, I can't see the screen because I accidentally clicked out of the window.
Oh, okay. Again, phototropism. Photo means light, and that's stretching towards the light. Okay? Have you seen that where a plant isn't grown in a window and it starts, all the leaves start moving towards the window side? That's phototropism. And that's why we say you rotate those plants every now and then, every week or two, you turn that plant around so it grows straight up instead of lopsided. Where gravitropism is a response to gravity. Because a plant wants to grow up, remember, it wants to go away from gravity because that's where the light is. That's where the leaves need to be for photosynthesis. So gravitropism means that it stretches so that the stem grows upward. And I've seen, like, so there's palm trees every now and then you'll see that are kind of, you see the ones that are kind of laying down, and they'll plant them initially where they're kind of laying over, and if you look later on, they start growing, they start growing straight up. from that point on, that's a gravitropism from that growing point on, because it won't stretch those old cells because that's hard fiber in the but it will start growing from that growing point on. It'll start stretching to move up to be more efficient with photosynthesis up above.
So,
Go ahead.
okay, my question was, so the plant, if it's lying on the side, if it's phototropism, the auxin is on what side? Is it on the bottom?
If it's phototropism, it's on the dark side.
Dark side, and gravitropism is on the light side.
On the gravitropism is on the bottom.
Okay, on the bottom.
Bottom, because you want it to grow up.
Right.
So it's on the side that has to stretch or grow longer to move it towards, either moving it towards the light. So it's not on the light side, it's on the dark side. Or gravitropism means it's on the bottom.
Awesome, thank you.
So if you put a plant horizontally, but then put a light source next to it horizontally, which would win, the phototropism or the gravitropism?
Probably gravitropism will probably win. Probably. I've never tested that, but my guess is gravitropism is going to win because there will still be some light up above. Trying to keep it dark above would be hard.
That was like tying buttered toast to the back of a cat.
Okay.
I could do research on that too, although my cats might not like it.
Well, and again, some of these things, you know, like testing the transpiration thing with the plastic bag, that's kind of a fun thing to see that water moving out of the plant, the potted soil and up into the bag. That's just ways to see that is kind of interesting, just so that you get a cool feel. And when you're trying to teach this, when you're going out to schools and stuff to teach things, those are kind of cool things to teach. Okay? Other questions?
Michael, my dad used to take the tomato plants and lay them down.
Yep.
And then they would grow up. And then that was to strengthen the root system. But he would lay them down and then they would grow up.
Right, because what you're actually doing at that point is he would lay it down, but he would also bury the stem that's laid down. And then in that process, he's allowing more roots to grow on that buried stem. And those are adventitious roots, which give more root system to support more top growth, because the top growth grows so quickly and you need a lot of leaves to support tomato growth. So that's why we sometimes talk about either planting them deeper or laying them sideways. But as soon as it starts in there, it starts growing up both from light and gravity, because the light's going to be up above.
Very important to know which plants have adventitious roots and which plants would be adversely affected by that technique.
Correct. Some plants can do that, some won't. Or even just piling soil at the bottom. Like you can get that, lots of times they'll side dress on corn because they make adventitious roots, and so you'll add soil to the sides of the corn in order to make more roots. And it's the same thing, even potatoes are one of those that once they grow to a certain height, you have to add soil to the sides so that they will make the potatoes, because again, those are stems. And so by piling the dirt up on the side of those potatoes, that's where the actual potatoes come from. They form from the shoots on the side of where those leaves used to be. So some plants can grow deep. Most plants cannot, particularly a lot of your woody plants cannot.
Thank you.
Okay. Other questions? Again, this is just an overview. I want you to be familiar with some terms, processes, and plant parts. So when you hear these later, go, oh yeah, I remember talking about that. And then it's just a thing that you build up over time. Come watch it again next year. Hopefully we'll be able to do this live, because I'll tell you, I like a live class better. Y'all have been great, and it's done better than I expected it to. But I like that interaction. I like y'all answering the questions live in a classroom when possible. So come watch it again next time they offer it.
Believe me, class, they fixed some of these terms. When I was an undergraduate, they were geotropisms, not gravitropisms. And when the plant took the form, it was geotropomorphism. And so the plant going against gravity was anti-geotropomorphism. So to say gravitropism versus anti-geotropomorphism is a lot easier.
That's one of the good things they did fix. So anyway,
Yeah.
have fun with your gardeners. This should be a good overview. I will share the slide set with Kevin. I've made some changes to it. So y'all will be able to review some of that over time. And when you get your book, whenever you get your book, you can look at that first section of it. And these are just terms that came straight out of that. Okay?
I'm glad you brought that up. I ordered the books, so they should be in a couple of days. Thank you, Dr. Womack. Doesn't he do a great job?
He does. I'm such a botany nerd, Dr. Womack. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Just a couple of things. When it comes to tropisms, I always lean left.
Oh.
And then it's always good to avoid the dark, to stay away from the dark side. Okay.
Hey, Kevin, when we get our books, how are we picking those up, or are they getting mailed out, or how's that going to work?
I'm thinking I'm just going to allow you to come pick them up at the office, to just make appointments to come pick them up. I don't really have any way other than, I don't know how I would go about just mailing them all out. So generally we just bring them to class and everybody grabs a book and goes. So is coming to the office and picking them up okay with everybody?
Where's your office located?
It's in Robstown.
You know, I've been in Corpus since, I don't know, 2000. I've never been to Robstown, so I guess I'll come to Robstown.
Or I could probably take them to the Botanical Gardens and have a book pick up there one night.
No big deal for me. Either way.
All right. I'll probably holler at you all and let you tell me what you want to do. Wednesday is the horticulturist from the Botanical Gardens, Carol Crank, and she's doing the lab for us. So looking forward to that. She and I have been working on some videos and stuff. Dr. Womack, when you get a chance, call me, please.
Tonight, or can I do it tomorrow?
You can do it tomorrow.
Okay.
All right.
Not a problem. I will see y'all later. I'm going to sign out and let y'all finish your discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
May I request a class list for the presenters so that we can call on people?
Yes, you can request anything you want. Send me an email, please.
Will do.
All right. Anybody else have any questions?
Nope.
All right. Well, I hope you're enjoying things. Dr. Womack does a terrific job explaining botany and in no more time than what we actually give him. So if you have questions, you can always shoot me an email, okay?
Okay, great class, great review.
Thank you. Y'all have a wonderful night. We'll see you on Wednesday.
Not everybody. Sorry I hogged up all the questions. Good night.
Oh, enjoyed listening. You're very talented.
All right. Bye, y'all.
Bye.